Santa seems to have brought me a nasty cold for Christmas this year. I'm going to read this early because I can feel my voice going and I really wanted to be a part of Emmett's show. Tonight, I'll be reading from the Survivor Diaries, Book 2, The Beginning at the End of the World. The story centers around a group of survivors after a global nuclear apocalypse. Laura Patton, the unlikely leader of MonteVistaVillage, records the villagers' daily life in diary format in the hope that it will be seen by future generations. In the following passages, Laura describes what it's like to attempt normalcy on Christmas during a nuclear winter while simultaneously planning a dangerous caravan to get to a safer living situation. December 19th. Sitting down and deciding what to take to the valley was hard. I remember reading articles about the things you would rescue if you only had a few minutes before you had to evacuate your house, before it was destroyed by a fire. Overwhelmingly, people chose their photo albums. Of course, that's what my family decided to take in our plastic tub as well. We were even able to find some of Bailey's family albums to add to the box of memories. Amy and I placed all of our loose photos, CDs with pictures on them, and albums into the container with our names written neatly with permanent marker on the lid. We laughed at the many crazy poses we made on family vacations. We blushed at our school photos and the funny hairdos we donned in the past. We drank up each picture, internalizing and committing them to memory. I'm not sure if it was that Christmas was only a few days away, or that Christmas had always been such a family-oriented time of year for us in the past. But those were the pictures that gripped my heart the most. Pictures of my grandmother happily sipping away at a glass of wine, and Brie holding up her newest present for the camera to catch, brought me to tears, happy and sad ones. It's so funny how we would shop for just the right gift for our loved ones, when what really mattered in the end was the time we spent together, hamming it up for the camera, baking cookies and trimming the tree. We told ourselves that these memories were important at the time, but we didn't really understand. We couldn't understand. We do now. Mark cut down a small Monterey pine for the living room. Not your typical Christmas tree, but it did the trick. We decorated it with ornaments from my childhood. I realized that, sadly, we were not going to be able to bring many of them with us. As we decorated, we talked about each one, again committing the past to memory. We used some of our precious generator power to charge our camera and cell phones so that we could take more photos. We posed, all smiles, with our favorite ornaments. Mrs. Ingram was much quieter than usual. I wondered if our reflections on better times had made her sad. I wheeled her into a private corner of the kitchen to ask her if she was all right. "I have something to tell you," she said. It was one of those comments that automatically sent bile up the back of my throat. Maybe it was her tone or the look in her eye, but I knew it would not be good. I braced myself for her to continue. "I'm not going with you to the valley, dear," she told me. "I'm staying here in the village." "But why?" was all that I could eke out over the lump in my throat. "I would be too much of a burden," she began. I tried to interrupt, but she stopped me. "No, Laura, my mind is made up. I know I don't have much longer. Jackson's taking me up to the hospital the day after Christmas. I'll stay there with the medical staff that's staying behind. They'll take good care of me until it's my time. I know it's coming soon." I began to sob and could not speak. "Dear sweet Laura, please don't cry. I'm ready. I've seen and done all I was meant for here on earth. It's time for me to go to my husband now. He's been waiting. I'm not afraid of what comes next. I'm ashamed to admit that I have never really felt like there was a next. I often wished and hoped for that kind of faith, especially after the last war. I wiped my tears and sniffled. "I understand," I told her. and the truth was I did understand. What was coming was going to be physically brutal on all of us, but more so for someone confined to a wheelchair. I know that they'll take good care of you at the hospital, I told her. This was just one more loss for all of us. December 24th. Today, my family and I finished our preparations for leaving the village so we wouldn't have to work on Christmas Day. We moved everything into the foyer so it could be loaded up as soon as the truck came. I can't believe tomorrow's Christmas. We've been so busy and it came so quickly. It was important that I make it as special as I could for Bailey. This is the first one without her mother and father. Before she went to bed, she asked me if Santa had died in the last war. This was a tricky one. So I used the old standby. Bailey, I said, Santa is alive as long as he lives in our hearts. She looked skeptical. I didn't blame her. I read to her from a few of Brie and Amy's old Christmas storybooks. She particularly enjoyed Madeline's Christmas. It made me sad when I realized that she, Brie, and Amy would never see Paris like I had when Annie escorted me on the most amazing trip through Europe as a gift for my college graduation. They would never have a college graduation either, at least not that I could foretell. We put out cookies and powdered milk for Santa Claus, and I tucked an excited girl into bed. It's funny how kids are still just kids in their hearts, even after all that's happened. Later that night, we sat in front of the fire, just Bree, Amy, Adam, Annie, Jake, Mark, and I. We had so many Christmas Eves in front of that very fireplace, but it didn't feel the same. We knew that this would be the end of the life that we had in Monterey. The room felt heavy around us. Hey, I'll arm wrestle anyone for Santa's milk and cookies, said Bree, breaking the tension. Ha, I'll beat your ass, said Amy with a huge smile. My money's on Amy, Jake wagered. She might be small, but she's scrappy. Bree, who really wasn't much bigger than Amy, had her down in seconds. Once that moment of excitement concluded, the room fell silent again. Okay, I said, enough. We can't sit around here crying about leaving. We've had enough time to adjust, so let's just have one last great moment here. I spoke as much for myself as anyone else. You're right, sis, said Jake. Let's do something. I've got it, I declared. I grabbed the walkie and brought it into the bedroom where no one could hear me. Within 20 minutes, Jill and Holly showed up at our front door. Jill was carrying all of the makings for hot toddies, and Annie put on the tea kettle for hot water. Mrs. Ingram came out of her room after hearing all the noise. We convinced her to stay and celebrate with us. And celebrate we did. Annie found enough food to make us a smorgasbord, and Mark got on the walkie to tell everyone who felt like coming to the Christmas Eve party to get themselves over to our place as soon as they could. Before we knew it, we had 40 people in our living room. I guess we weren't the only ones needing a pick-me-up tonight. Everyone brought all the food and alcohol they could spare, and before we knew it, we had a full-blown party on our hands. Samantha brought a karaoke machine with her, and we made our own entertainment. I was flabbergasted when Jackson sang John Bon Jovi's Blaze of Glory. He actually had a pretty good singing voice. When I concentrated on the lyrics, it made me a little nervous about how he was imagining our upcoming trip. Staring down a bullet let me take my final stand, he sang. Maybe it should be the theme song for the journey ahead. Is he Billy the Kid, or am I wondered. The rest of the songs throughout the evening were more upbeat. Mark and Adam's rendition of It's Raining Men brought the house down. I considered singing I Will Survive, but I saved everyone the agony of listening to my voice. I looked around at my friends who were joyfully celebrating the night and realized something. These weren't just fellow survivors, or even just villagers. This was my family now, and these people were far more important than the wood, stone, brick, and mortar of where we dwelled. Just like that, I wasn't heartbroken to leave anymore, because I wasn't leaving my home. I was bringing it with me. And the night felt right as we made our final memories in Monterey.